James Bond is a big character in the watch world, and we all know about his connection to Omega. But if James Bond was real, I think about the watch that he would actually wear. According to Ian Fleming, the guy who actually wrote James Bond, Ian Fleming was a fan of Rolex. He wore an Explorer 1016, arguably one of the most beautiful watches ever made. And of course, he made it that Bond was a Rolex wearer, starting out with the Submariner. He then had a brief spell with a whole load of other watches, and then suddenly, boom, this massive transition and consistent transition to Omega. The whole Omega James Bond deal came about from the James Bond franchise, reaching out to Omega and saying, hey, we want one of your watches on the wrist of James Bond. And that advertising sponsorship deal was gonna be worth about $50,000. Omega obviously paying the James Bond franchise for the advertising of their watch. Now, the CEO of Omega at the time was industry legend Jean-Claude Biver, who's renowned for making amazing marketing moves, and this is probably the most impactful. Jean-Claude Biver went back to Omega and said, I don't want the watch to just be on the wrist. How about I give you $1 million, you write the watch into the movie, allow Omega to license a product line around James Bond, and we take this product placement deal and make it a full 360 marketing relationship that's just turned into this huge money maker. But that relationship is purely commercial. It's just sponsorship. It's nothing more than money. So if James Bond was real, what watch would he actually have? Well, James Bond started off before he was MI6, before he was the spy. He started off as a Royal Navy officer, and Royal Navy issued this watch. The CWC RN Quartz Divers Watch Mark II. CWC, or Cabot Watch Company, I've covered them before when I spoke about my G10. Cabot Watch Company have been the chosen watch supplier for the Ministry of Defence since the 70s, after Rolex and Omega became too expensive. And they don't just make Royal Navy watches, they make watches for the British Army and for the RAF as well. Unlike the Omegas and the Rolexes that the Ministry of Defence customized to fit their specifications, this watch was built for the Ministry of Defence. So this watch was built within the parameters with the specifications that the Ministry of Defence required. The case is 41mm wide, it's stainless steel, it's 11mm thick, it's 47mm lug to lug. We have a screw down crown that gives a watch 300 meters of water resistance, and it has a 120 click unidirectional dive bezel. The lume is super luminova, and we have a matte black dial, and the lugs are 20mm wide. The movement inside it is a Ronda 517, it's a Swiss quartz movement, has a power reserve of 45 months. That's pretty long. That's nearly 4 years of power. Like most proper military watches, true military watches, not watches that are being marketed as military watches, watches that are actually issued within the Ministry of Defence specifications, they have welded lugs. They don't have spring bars that can be removed. The strap pins are welded into the case. This means when you use a strap, you have to have a single piece fabric strap. Yes, of course, I'm going to plug my own straps here, but the history around this is the Ministry of Defence wanted a strap, one watch strap, that would fit all purposes. Whether you want the watch mounted to your wrist, or whether you want the watch mounted on the outside of a flying suit or on the outside of a wetsuit. We are going to be launching some new straps really very soon, and we will be shipping to more countries very soon as well, within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So check out what we've got over at barkandjack.com, but more importantly, sign up to a little newsletter there, because then you'll be first to know when we launch new products, and from time to time, you'll get a little discount code as well. This CWC dive watch was lent to me by one of my mates, Ben, who runs Wristworthy. He actually came up with the idea of this being James Bond's actual watch, and he did an in-depth article on it, going further into the connection between James Bond and the SBS, and then the SBS version of this watch. I'll put a link in the description down below for his article. However, this watch is the watch that's issued to the RAF. My dad is a retired RAF pilot. When I told my dad that I bought this watch off eBay for 60 quid, he laughed and said, I can't believe you actually spent money on that piece of crap, which is very similar to what he says about my Rolexes. My dad said that the guys didn't really wear these. You were issued them and you just threw them in your sock drawer and left them there, and that was it. When James Bond became the spy, because he doesn't want to openly show his military connection. He needs to be a grey man. He needs to just disappear and be a nobody. So maybe he too put his CWC in his sock drawer. And I actually think Omega got one of their watches right for him. In Skyfall, Bond was issued 2 watches. He had a Planet Ocean and an Aquaterra. And I think the Aquaterra, one of my all-time favourite watches, is the perfect watch for a spy. It's not flashy like a Rolex. It's perfectly versatile. It would look great with a suit. It would look great with a wetsuit. But more importantly, it's powered by one of Omega's caliber 8000 movements. Massively shockproof and doesn't get interrupted by drastic changes of temperature. So I kind of think this is a perfect spy watch. What do you guys think about the CWC Royal Navy dive watch? And what do you think would be the perfect Bond watch? If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you like the style of this video, then hit the subscribe button down there and that little bell icon so you get notifications when I drop a new video. If you want to check out our watch straps and watch accessories, jump over to barkandjack.com and give me a follow on Instagram at barkandjack. I'll see you very soon.